You didn't imagine it. And no, it wasn't luck. What you walked away from, what never reached you, what quietly disappeared from your life was not random. There was something forming behind the scenes, something you were never meant to see with your natural eyes. And before it could touch you, God stepped in. There were moments when things almost worked out, and then suddenly didn't. People you trusted changed. Opportunities vanished without explanation. Plans collapsed at the last second. At the time, it felt confusing, maybe even painful. You questioned yourself. You wondered if you had done something wrong. But what if those closed doors weren't rejection? What if they were protection? God saw what you couldn't. He saw conversations happening without your name in the room. He saw intentions hidden behind smiles. He saw outcomes that would have wounded you deeply, delayed your calling, or pulled you into a future that would have cost you more than you realize. And because you are not ordinary, because your life carries purpose, He intervened quietly. You were spared from a future you never even saw. Some of the most dangerous moments in a chosen one's life don't come with warning signs. They come disguised as opportunity, as love, as comfort. As this finally makes sense, but God in His mercy does not always allow everything that looks good to reach you. Sometimes He removes people before they reveal who they really are. Sometimes He delays answers because the timing you wanted would have led to destruction. Sometimes He lets things fall apart because if they had stayed together, you would have lost yourself. Think about it. There were times when you were disappointed by a no you prayed would be a yes. You mourned relationships that ended abruptly. You felt frustrated by delays that made no sense. But looking back now, something feels different. There's a quiet knowing in your spirit. A realization that says, if that had worked out, my life would not be where it is today. That wasn't coincidence. That was divine intervention. God does not always protect His chosen ones by removing the storm. Sometimes He protects them by redirecting their path before they ever reach it. He blocks the wrong exits. He closes the wrong doors. He allows misunderstandings to separate you from people who would have eventually betrayed you. And He does it silently, so you don't even realize how close you were to danger. You may never know what He saved you from. The accident that didn't happen. The emotional bond that would have broken you. The environment that would have drained your faith. The decision that would have altered your destiny. But heaven knows. And hell knows too. That's why the enemy tried so hard to make you feel like you were missing out. That's why discouragement crept in during those seasons of loss. The enemy wanted you to believe God had abandoned you, when in reality, God was shielding you, covering you, stepping in front of something meant to harm you. This is how protection often looks for the chosen ones. Not loud miracles, not dramatic rescues, but quiet interruptions, sudden endings, unexplainable detours, and later clarity. You didn't lose what was meant for you. What left your life was never aligned with where God is taking you. And what didn't happen was actually God saying, not this way, not now, not at that cost. Let this truth settle in your spirit. You were not unlucky. You were not overlooked. You were not delayed without reason. You were protected, carefully, intentionally, lovingly. And if God went to that extent to guard you from a future you never saw, imagine how intentional He is about the future He is leading you into now. God did not step in randomly. He intervened because what was coming was not just an inconvenience, it was a threat to your assignment. There are lives that can afford detours, and then there are chosen ones whose path must be guarded carefully because one wrong turn could delay years of purpose. You were protected because the enemy was not trying to bother you. He was trying to stop you. The enemy does not waste energy on empty vessels. He targets those carrying something valuable. What was planned against you was meant to distract you, drain you, or destroy the version of you that God is forming. It may have looked harmless on the surface, a relationship, a decision, an environment, a timing that felt almost right. But beneath it was a slow erosion of your faith, your focus, and your calling. God saw the end before you ever saw the beginning. You were not paranoid, you were discerning. And when your spirit felt uneasy, that was not fear, that was protection speaking quietly. God allowed you to sense discomfort where others felt excitement. He allowed things to fall apart early so they wouldn't collapse on you later. Some people walked straight into situations you were spared from, not because you were better than them, but because your assignment required preservation. There were betrayals you never experienced because God removed people before their true intentions surfaced. There were accidents that never happened because God delayed you just enough to miss the moment of impact. There were wrong relationships that never fully formed because God cut them off at the root. You thought you were being denied, but heaven was intervening. Chosen ones rarely receive loud warnings. God doesn't always send angels with flashing signs. More often, He sends resistance. He sends confusion where something looks good but doesn't feel right. He sends obstacles that make no sense in the natural. And if you're not careful, you can mistake that resistance as failure. But in the spirit realm, it's coverage. This is why your life has felt different from others. You watched people move faster, take risks, and seem to succeed while you were slowed down. You wondered why their doors opened easily while yours required patience, pruning, and pressure. But God does not handle chosen lives casually. He allows others to learn through damage. He teaches you through prevention. Some seasons hurt because they were sudden. A door closed without explanation. A connection ended without closure. A plan dissolved when you were already emotionally invested. You grieved, not realizing you were grieving something that would have harmed you long term. Pain does not always mean punishment. Often it means redirection. Scripture reminds us that God orders the steps of the righteous. That means not just the steps you take, but the ones you never get the chance to take. The paths that were blocked on purpose. The timing that felt off was off for a reason. God's protection is not always about rescuing you after damage. It's about preventing the damage altogether. The enemy wanted access to you. Access through emotions, through compromise, through exhaustion, through delay. And God said no, not because you earned it, but because He appointed you. He placed a boundary where you would have walked willingly if you had known less. That's why you must stop replaying the what ifs. What if that relationship had worked? What if that opportunity had opened? What if you had stayed longer? Those thoughts don't come from clarity. They come from not seeing the full picture. God saw it, and He stepped in before it could shape your future the wrong way. You were not rejected. You were redirected. You were not slowed down. You were shielded. And while others may have walked freely into situations that cost them peace, faith, or years of recovery, God handled you differently because you are called to carry something forward, not recover from something behind you. This protection was not a setback. It was a test of trust. And you passed it by surviving what you never had to experience. God did not protect you just to leave you standing in confusion. He protected you because what lies ahead of you matters. Your future carries weight. It carries influence, healing, impact, and purpose that goes far beyond what you can currently see. Heaven does not guard empty futures. It preserves assignments. And the fact that God stepped in before harm could reach you is proof that your life is connected to something larger than a single season. There is a reason you are still here, with clarity instead of regret, faith instead of bitterness, and strength instead of ruin. What could have broken you was blocked. What could have delayed you was removed. And now, slowly, you are beginning to understand why. The confusion is lifting, the questions are quieting, and the pieces are starting to connect in ways they never did before. You are entering a season where God no longer hides His hand. The favor that once worked silently behind the scenes is beginning to reveal itself. Opportunities will open with peace instead of pressure. Connections will feel aligned instead of forced. Doors will open that don't require you to shrink, compromise, or chase. This is not sudden luck. This is delayed clarity meeting divine timing. What was blocked will make sense now. The relationship that ended abruptly. The path that closed without explanation. the delay that frustrated you. You are about to see how each interruption protected your character, preserved your faith, and positioned you for what is next. God was not wasting time. He was shaping you while shielding you. The enemy tried to disrupt your path, but he failed. He could not distract you permanently. He could not destroy your calling. He could not delay you beyond God's authority. What he meant for confusion has turned into discernment. What he meant for loss has turned into wisdom. What he meant to stop has only been refined. There is a calm that comes when you realize God has been ahead of you this entire time. You don't have to force what is coming. You don't have to fight for recognition. You don't have to fear being behind. When God preserves a future, he also orchestrates the timing. Nothing arrives late. Nothing arrives unprepared. You may not yet see the full picture, but you can trust the direction. God does not reveal everything at once to chosen ones, not because he wants to withhold, but because he wants to build faith. And faith grows strongest when you move forward without needing all the answers. This is your invitation to fully trust him now, not partially, not cautiously, but wholeheartedly. Let go of the need to understand every detour. Release the urge to revisit doors God closed. What is ahead will not require you to look back. It will require you to stand firm, stay humble, and walk forward with confidence. The same God who protected you from what you never saw is guiding you into what you were always meant for. He did not save you just to leave you uncertain. He saved you to position you, to align you, to reveal his favor at the right time. Expect clarity. Expect peace. Expect doors that open without anxiety. Expect confirmation where there was once confusion. You are not stepping into randomness. You are stepping into purpose. And when the future unfolds, you will look back and realize that every closed door, every delay, and every painful ending was not a loss. It was preparation. It was preservation. It was love. Stay faithful. Stay grounded. Stay obedient. The plan remains. And what God preserved for you is now closer than it has ever been.